I'm going to pick up the recording. Can I? No, it doesn't matter. Yeah, I've got it. So yeah, all right. So there may have been some mix up with the link this week. I'm not sure, but I'll crack on regardless. We are going to take a little bit of a relook at this format. What I've been doing here for, I don't know, maybe 6 months now, is being here every week and driving the cutting edge aspects of blockchain technologies. That's where I tend to spend most of my time, is looking at the cutting edge and then laying up the steps behind so that people can get involved or not. So this week's no different. We're going to be looking at this new concept of the Internet of Jobs, IOJ, and that's fine. But what I think we're going to do after the new year is maybe have a look that we have done a couple of times on this particular hour, is the coaches come in. Okay, so they start with the DVM coaches who are already established, who already got authority, they already know what they're doing, and they can maybe come up with either pre-requested activities that are a little bit more bite-sized, a little bit more productive in helping the majority of people take the steps necessary in this space, and eventually other people. Okay, the idea would be to empower people. It's one of the things we talk about at DBM. They say, do you employ anybody, Sean? I said, no, I'm not doing any more of that. I'm empowering people. So the whole idea is for you guys ultimately to come forward and contribute to the greater good. Okay, so just so you know, that's where we're headed. That's what we're thinking of being headed, because very shortly we'll now have the Crypto Tribe Academy up and running, and that again will be made up of the DBM family, but it will be very much aligned to what Crypto and Thrive Tribes and all the rest of it stands for. Okay, so with that said, and then I'll just pop in now and get into what I'm planning to show you this week, which is quite an interesting newish realm in blockchain, or using blockchain, which is this idea of, not the metaverse, we did that the other week, this idea of creating your own job. And what we call it is Internet of Jobs, IOJ. So it's very new, but what you'll understand is it's actually already here. But there's lots of us who create income by carrying out activities that we would be doing anyway. And the reason I thought I'd pick on it this week is because in every developed nation at the moment, and or most of them, and probably the same in what we call developing nations, is you've got this standoff going on because of the pandemic between interest rates and inflation. Okay, so it leads to this problem. So I just want to talk about that for two minutes, and then we'll hit some solutions. So the issues are pretty obvious, and it's been enhanced and made even bigger by the pandemic. I don't know what it's like in your part of the world, but this next variant that has come about has caused another round of people being restricted in their movements. So we've already had 2 years of this, and now we're just about to probably have another 6 months of it, whatever it's going to be, and that's restriction of movement. So people can't go to work, people can't go out and do stuff. Even people who are running businesses can't run the businesses because people can't go out and be customers of the businesses. So value is being reduced. Yeah, I know this is all obvious, but it's important as a perspective, because ultimately what it leads to is lower wages, ultimately unemployment, and that is compounded when they start to do what's called price fixing. So all these elements I think you might recognize. And to top it all off, not only is it harder and harder and harder for people to create value in their local geography, in the physical realm, and in what they've been used to most of their lives, as a direct result of that lack of movement of value, which means reduction in revenue, you end up with governments and monetary scientists stepping in that do things, and they've been doing this for many decades actually, but it's really pronounced at the moment. And you end up with this increased cost of living, which I think we can all empathize with over the past 6 months or so. But why does that happen? Why does the cost of living specifically go up? Well, that's down to monetary scientists tinkering with the economy, neo-capitalism. Okay, so we have touched on this before, but the whole idea is that since 2008 particularly, you've seen this unfettered printing of currency. Yeah, remember there's a difference between currency and money. And at some point in time, that will always catch you up. It always has, it always will. Many thousands and thousands of examples of this in fiat terms over many, many generations. And here we are again in a process of increased inflation. And there's no sign of that going away. In most developed nations, it's just happened in the UK today that they're sort of tickling at interest rates again. With this unprecedented increase in inflation, which has not been as high since 2011. Okay, and that's stated inflation, not real inflation. Stated inflation, according to the CPI. With that level of fast increase, which is a direct result of unfettered money printing over the past decade, normally you'd be seeing significant percentage increases on interest rates. What are they doing? Barely 0.25%. Why can't they go any more than that? Well, because they can't afford their own debt. So they know there's a problem. Everybody knows there's a problem. But what's being done about it in real terms? Yeah, well, they're blaming this current war. Our generation war is COVID. The generation before us was the Second World War. Okay, so there's a whole narrative around that. You can believe what you want to believe, but in the end, it's all leading to the same place. So printing will carry on, and unfortunately, it's going to come in the guise of CBDCs, which means it won't be printing anymore. In fact, it's not printing now. It's just them bashing the zero button on the computers. Yeah, but there's a whole other wave of problems coming when it comes to CBDCs. Other alternatives are stopping printing altogether. But why would they do that when it'll crash the markets that most of the wealthy, most of the money men are already intertwined with? They're not going to crash their own wealth, are they? So they're not going to stop the money printing. I'll stop printing the currency. So the only other thing that will come is price fixing, which is that going back to the point about unemployment. That's what's coming now. They'll be fixing prices. And the way they're going to duck around that by making it less obvious is they're going to airdrop, what we call it airdrop. It's basically gifted universal credit. It will be pushed into the populations directly from the central banks. Now, for the next few years, people will be looking at that and going, oh, thank goodness, the government's looking after us after that horrible pandemic. We've now got some cash flow coming into our lives. We can go out there and get back to normal again. Unfortunately, all that will do under that premise of printed currency is lead to more price inflation. So this next decade is very important that you recognize that for what it is. And when you do recognize this and you see the central bank digital currencies coming, a bit like you've seen with the Biden dollar over the past 12 months, those people who understand this and what's coming and what's after the fact of when they gift you this currency, you actually can take that knowledge and say, great, I'll take that currency, no problem at all. But guess what? The first thing I'm going to do with it is I'm going to accrue assets. And I don't know how many of you follow the Michael Saylor model, where he's doing it already. He's taking very cheap currency, as we know it, at very, very low borrowing rates, and buying Bitcoin with it, like billions of dollars worth of Bitcoin. Because he knows that the cost of borrowing is going to be more than covered by the appreciation rate of the asset. And for households, for people to understand that premise is one of the ways they can get through this next decade. Okay, and we talk about that a lot. I've spoken about that a lot over the weeks, about what it is to own assets, put them to work, leverage and everything else. But it's one very big way of defending yourself against his monetary sciences tinkering. Okay, so that's that. Now, owning assets, putting them to work and everything else, as far as I'm concerned, it's an absolute prerequisite. But the other way of creating income, creating cash flow, is to have a job on the internet. I know that sounds a bit basic, but most people make a living in life. And what they do is they respond to challenges by working income types. So they'll create income from various types. Very simply and broadly speaking, it breaks into 3 different income types, income methods. Fixed incomes, yeah, which not many ordinary people have fixed income. Subscriptions, royalties, contracts, etc. Residual or active income, which most people are in through the form of wages. And passive incomes, which is what we've just been alluding to, which very, very few people know about, and very few people do anything with. But going forward, it has to be a mix of all 3. So we've been very active at DBM with passive incomes for a long time, because we understood this a while back, that we had to start to work with the apex assets, infinite demand, fixed supply, all the rest of it. DeFi came along a couple of years ago and it all just went boom, because straight away we were able to start to put those held fixed assets into cash flowing entities, interest, liquidity, leverage, all that stuff that I've been talking about over the past few weeks. But there's another angle to blockchain that most people aren't fully aware of, and it's called the Internet of Jobs. So it's not about owning the asset necessarily, even though that is a big part of it. More importantly, it's about being positioned on a blockchain platform that gives you the ability to be paid for carrying out activity on the platform. Okay, that's basically what the Internet of Jobs is. So at that level, we're starting to move, I mentioned this a few times over the months, the shift is on us, the shift which allows us not only to own the premise of the business's activity as digital shareholders holding coins, waiting for appreciation because of demand over supply. Not only that, we're also able to plug in via smart contracts to the actual function of the things that are valuable inside the business proposition itself. And in other words, the things that drive the revenue. And we take proportional ownership of that revenue. We get it distributed to us in what are called microtransactions. So an example would be Google. Google's owned by Alphabet, and Google's purpose is to aggregate data that we give it, by the way, freely. It then takes that data, farms it, and sells it to the highest bidders in the form of advertising. I think we all understand that, yeah? And the vast majority of the benefit of that transaction goes to the Google shareholders, not to the people who actually put the data in the first place. With something like Brave browser, put a 1 in the chat if you're using Brave browser. I'm on Brave browser right now talking to you via Zoom. Very similar model, an aggregator of data of people using the browser. It then takes that data, sells it out to the highest bidder on advertising. But the big difference is, as the advertising revenue comes in, it gets converted to back token and distributed proportionally to the people who use the platform. If you've got your platform plugged into your wallet under back token, yeah, there's a step you have to do in there. So that's a great example of the way Internet of Jobs is creating income streams for people for things they're doing anyway. And it naturally leads to a wealth redistribution via blockchain technology. It's very new, above and beyond ownership of assets and all that stuff we've known about forever. It's now moving to a place where you can actually get paid to be a user. All right. So to give that a little bit of graphical visual, and you might recognize one of the little platforms on here as part of the Thrive Tribe community, yeah, because we're in the middle of doing it. But on the left, is the traditional job economy. And it suited us for decades, well, generations, hundreds of years. It's suited what we've done. You know, a couple of 100 years ago, would have been on the fields right now, getting our food ready for tomorrow. We'd be chopping wood, we'd be killing animals, we'd be doing stuff to be able to survive. Subsistence, yeah. The last few hundred years, it's moved to a place where the man, the boss, the job, creates a value proposition, a company, a business. And as that business becomes more and more valuable, then it needs more and more resources. So it employs people. And these people put time, skill, effort into the value proposition of that business, and they get compensated for that in the form of a wage. And a proportion of that, a pretty high proportion of it actually these days, goes to the government in form of taxes. The rest of it, we're convinced to put it into banks. And the rest goes to living life. And for the average person, that sees them right for the month. Increasingly, more people have got more monthly money, which is part of the challenge. Now, this model is fine until the premise of the token, in this case currency, that is used to pay for that skill, time, and energy, starts to collapse. And that process actually started over 50 years ago, before I was even born, in the premise of it not being sustainable for one very, very key constituent, its ability to sustain purchasing power. So as a consequence, you've had, in our lifetime, the societal shifts of two parents going to work, yeah, people working longer to stand still, credit cards, loans, mortgages through the 80s and 90s became normal, and today are normalized. In fact, it's gone so far as of 2021 that there are companies you can work with online these days, or acquire products from online these days for clothes and TVs and kettles and whatever you want. You can go online, you can buy the product, and they'll give you 6 weeks to pay it down. The latest crop of that type of service is now allowing people to buy food on the Never Never. Buying food to feed them this week that they'll pay for over the next 6 weeks. Now, where's that going to lead? So the whole premise of this left-hand side job economy is already broke. But when you stop people being able to go out because of restrictions in movement, which we've experienced in real life for the last 2 years, then you've got serious problems. Hence, we've got serious problems. So if you know this, and everybody knows it, but most people just accept it and hope for the best and wait for the next government handout, and wait for the banks to do whatever they're going to do with interest rates, wait for the boss to magically give them a pay rise, wait for everything to go normal again. You wait and wait and wait. But you can't change it. You can't vote your way out of it. And even when it does correct itself and gets back to some sort of normality, whatever that's going to be, you're on the back foot because you've simply put yourself into a place whereby you're waiting for others, bosses, banks, and governments to solve your problems. So what can we do about it? Well, it's as clear on the nose in your face, if you care to look, that an incredible phenomenon exists now that's been around for a while. Started with decentralized finance about 2 years ago. A concept whereby you can take the mantle, you can have a look at where value is actually being created, often because of this left-hand side model not working. E-commerce was the first example of this 20 years ago. But where e-commerce was the preserve of the entrepreneur and the business-minded and the businesses that were already established, what blockchain Internet of Jobs is all about is the ability for an individual to step up and take control. And we do that through step number one, owning the asset that is associated with a business's value proposition. A lot of businesses from this left-hand side are already moving across, but quite slowly. what you're finding mostly happening is new concept businesses coming forward and saying, we're going to change the model, and to get born, to be born, we're going to launchpad, we're going to crowdfund 2.0, we're going to go out to the world, literally the world, and we're going to tokenize our digital stock price. So I think we already understand that, because we've been talking about that for weeks and weeks and weeks. You can own tokens subject to your ability to choose the right businesses at the right time, that cash flow in the right manner, okay? But what I'm talking about this week is much more nuanced than that. It's not just about owning the token. It's about being a participant, user, contributor to the actual premise of the business's existence. Now, the one that's really relevant to us as a community is ThriveHub. Right now, thanks to the genius of Alicio and other people around him, one of the very first models, there are others, there are quite a few others actually, but one of the first models where we're actually able not just to be able to participate in owning the tokens that represent that company, but also we're able to contribute. And every time we do post, like, share, we get a credit, don't we? Now, those credits at the moment are, you could call them NFTs, they're non-fungible. They're just in-system credits. They're not worth anything other than what they're worth in the system. But as time transpires, the way these models work is that that can be tokenized. I've spoken about the Unity token before, and that's what's coming. The idea then is that the Internet of Jobs aspect of it is that you're using social media anyway. The big difference between ThriveHub and Facebook is Facebook will take your data, farm it, sell it, and pay the shareholders. ThriveHub, we put the data in, we share it, the advertisers will come, but we all take a distributed proportional ownership of that in the Unity token, which raises in utility and therefore value, and that's how we get paid. Very much like the Brave token concept, the BAT token, yeah? So I think most of you understand that listening to this call live. If you're listening to this on video, and that's the first time you've realized what the credits are in ThriveHub, then get over there and start driving the project. Tokenomics, own it, use it, endorse it. Okay. Other quick examples of this are tokenized property in platforms like Realty. I've spoken about that before. I personally own dozens of properties on a fractional basis across the whole of North America. And every Monday I get paid in DAI. Because as rent comes in, that proportionally gets redistributed to the people who crowdfunded the property ownership. We're basically circumventing the mortgage company. And that's a good thing. Crowdfunded the property, and now we take an ongoing cash flow from that. In other words, it's the Internet of a Job. It's IOJ. That is my job. We have turned the real estate industry into an Internet of Job. Same with Sun Exchange, which is the solar panel technology I've spoken about before. We capitalize the growth of solar panels. We put that into, as it happens, even better, places in South Africa at the moment that can't get access to power, but now they have through solar panels. The kids can go to school, the kids can learn, the kids are on the internet learning how to do exactly what I'm talking about. They end up creating their own tokenomics while they're learning. Every time the sun shines, revenue gets created. I get proportionally paid on that particular project every single Friday. Not Mr. Beat, not Mr. Beat for years. Fantastic projects we'll see in Sun Exchange. Brave I've spoken about, which is what this little emblem is here. Now DeFi is still in here, but DeFi stands on its own, separate from Internet of Jobs, because DeFi is all about being paid for the movement of money, liquidity, interest rates, and all the rest of it, yeah? That's not quite the Internet of Jobs. The Internet of Jobs is when you do something, actively do something, and you're getting paid. Whereas in DeFi, your assets are doing all the work. So what do? You have both of them. You pull them together, you create asset cash flow. And it's a perpetual loop. It's a perpetual loop that can only grow as people realize that it's even a concept. So what needs to happen? Well, more and more people need to realize that this exists in real life. And that's a bridge So all these people at the minute are running around waiting for the government to tell them what to do next when it comes to a pandemic. While they're waiting at home, waiting to go back to work, what should they be doing? Well, they should be going getting into the internet of jobs. And that's the process. So part of the reason that the academies exist, and part of the reason I do this every week, is to show that this exists so that you can get out there and help people. Because at the end, this is such an easy thing to do. It is so easy. And people come to me all the time and say, Sean, I've not got the capital. I don't know whether I've got the capital. So I've not got the money to own assets, to put it to work. And so that's fine. Well, go and work with Brave, go and work with Thrive, go and work with Realty. Go and work with all the gaming platforms that are coming that you can gamify income from. There's loads of ways to create income on the internet that aren't the old-fashioned, you know, Fiverr and whatever else they used to have, and e-commerce and everything else. This is about you plugging into an already preordained smart contract blockchain structure. It's unbelievable. And when you get it consistently right, it's a very, very good income. You've got to build it like anything else. You know, you're coming into the job as an office clerk, you're going to get paid like an office clerk. But in this space, you can move right up the ranks to supervisor and managers very quickly, just by putting yourself in front of where these leverage positions are, okay? And my personal opinion is that Thrive Hub is a great example of that. I think Thrive Hub will move very quickly in 2022 on the basis of, first of all, people being pissed off with what's going on with the Facebook world. And secondly, people realizing that they can get paid to contribute on the stuff that, on their data that we're putting there anyway. Who said Google and Facebook and Amazon had the overriding power of all this data? Nobody. They just took it because they knew they could, and people are daft enough to share data for free. Well, those days are finishing now. Your data is worth something. Monetize it. All right. So that's the Internet of Jobs, IOJ. Look out for it. It's all good stuff. Any questions? Any thoughts?
Don't be shy, guys. Unmute your mic. Ask Sean some questions while we got him.
Hey, Sean, it's Ellie.
Ellie, how's tricks?
Yeah, good. Thanks. I'm busy with other stuff, which is really frustrating when I get to this. Haven't even got a tree yet. What was I going to say? When are you going to do this regularly now? Because I haven't seen it before and I missed it. And if you are doing it regularly, when is it, please?
When you say it, what you're referring to?
The IOJ thing that you're talking about.
Oh, well, what I've done today is I've given you hopefully some information on it existing. Now,
oh, I see. Yeah, I got you. This is
yeah. Now, there's two options. You go out there and find this stuff for yourself. That's why a big part of the academies are free with the workshops, and you work with the coaches. But if you want to have your hand held and really get moving with people who've been doing this for a while, then you again work with the coaches, and there's a good few on here today. And they'll take you through the steps of how to register for Realty, how to own tokenized real estate, what it is to get involved with Thrive Hub. You know, that's a process of your own action.
I see. So this was like a regular DBM, your regular DBM thing, and then but you just talked about the IOJ today.
Yes. So yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
So twice on Thursdays for the European time frame, and then what we're doing now is North American time frame. I just give an overarching overview of the latest things going on in blockchain. But like I say, we are adjusting that. But in terms of the action, in terms of taking action on hopefully this value, then that's what the academy is for.
Okay, so which of the coaches would be best to talk about IOJs?
All of them.
Oh.
All of them. All the coaches have done Internet of Job for a long time.
Oh, okay.
Maybe not called it that, but that's what they've been doing.
All right, excellent. Okay, thanks.
What I want to add to what you said, Sean, and maybe to explain a little bit more about to Ellie, it is what we do within the DBM and as coaches, we use all the tools that the blockchain give us. And the Internet of Jobs actually makes it more how do I say it? It's a smaller bridge for people that are in a job and losing their job, to make an income and understand what the whole blockchain space is about.
Yeah, it's more relatable.
That's what
see
yeah.
We're basically getting paid for things we do anyway.
Right.
And to be honest with you, Ellie, there's not an awful lot of pure internet of job platforms out there. There's an increasing number of them. The vast majority of blockchain is currently still in asset position, DeFi, leverage, growth. They're coming. We're finding them coming very quickly in gamification and metaverse and all this stuff. And I'll just give you a few examples today. So you're not behind the curve, Ellie. You're very much ahead of the curve.
Except for the fact that it's the 16th and I don't have a Christmas tree.
Well,
Right.
I can't help you with that. But
all right, thanks. Yeah, no, I get it now. Sorry, I misunderstood. Thanks, Mella. Thanks. I'm hoping to make one of your calls very soon. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Sean, hi mate. How's it going?
All right, buddy. I recognise that accent.
Yeah, how's Brighty doing? How's Manchester? Good?
It's good. It's gorgeous, sunshine, as you can imagine. Cracking the flags.
Yeah. I'm in Portland, so I've got the same. It's like being in Manchester again. So my question is, like, you have for traditional jobs, you have job boards. Are there such things that exist for the IOJ things, like a sort of a hub location where one could go and sort of scour the different options where you could invest your energy and the kind of returns, tokens, or otherwise that might be available? Yeah,
it's called Digital Business Masters. So the whole thing is to join with a community, and that's about as good as we've got right now, Mark, about it. But you're right, that's where it's headed, and more power to us for doing so. Because once you crack this, I wake up every morning, not necessarily having to do anything. But the thing that shoots me out of bed every morning is knowing how many people aren't doing this. And then it becomes a natural, fulfilling prophecy, okay? So we're working as hard as we can to build the structures. We've called it an academy, but what it actually is very much a job board like you're talking about. And different people coming all the time, mate. They're always coming in. Have you seen this? Have you seen that? Have you seen the other thing? Now, there's loads of shit out there, okay? Right. Just like anything in life. But when you're at this long enough and you're working with a tight community like this, and Shillit Token's a great example of that. So that's like a job board for incubator tokens. That's what Shillit is. Then you get into the rhythm, and before you know it, you're easily putting yourself in front of these various platforms and projects that pay you every day. It's quite a thing, mate.
Yeah, I'm loving the whole conceptual idea. Of course, it's still very etheric in my brain, and I get that that's the whole function of DBM is to help solidify it. Right. What are next steps? Like, I mean, are there step-by-step training videos, or is that what is all the DBM course material?
Well, yeah. So there's two things in life: you're free or paid. If you're wanting to get stuff done with very little cost, then you go through the free workshops, you make relationships with coaches, it takes time, okay? And it's a bit more challenging because you've got to sort of map it together yourself because there's nobody holding your hand, you're not being coached, it's like anything. Right. But if you want to put a bit of skin in the game and get things moving more quickly, then one of the very successful programs we do is 3 months to cash flow, which literally gives you cash flow in 3 months, yeah? You're having your hand held very tightly. In fact, you're totally lamed. We have lots of people who do the 3 months to cash flow program and try to tell us what to do, yeah? And that's okay. That's okay. But a big part of it is discipline. And it's about like going to the gym and going, yeah, I know I'll get, I may have started it quicker than you're going to get them started. I'm going to do 50 of those. No, you're not, because if you do, you're going to have a hernia, yeah? So we put people through that process. So there's 2 lanes at the moment, but we continually refine it so that we've got more and more and more value to more and more and more people. And that's why we're conjoining with 5 Tribes very shortly with the Academy, because there's lots of different people, lots of different opinions, lots of different experiences. And we just have an obligation to help people as much as we can. So yeah, that's the broad 2 routes you've got, mate.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And what about, you talk about, I've heard you talk on previous calls about this notion of like show me the evidence, show me your 6 month, your 2 year evidence of your track system, as people come to you and say, oh yeah, this is the next great thing, whatever, the next Bitcoin. So what does DBM have in terms of that sort of track record, because clearly the handheld thing, the 3 months to cash flow, very catchy, very sexy. That sounds great, and I'm sure it takes a capital investment at the forefront. I don't know how much actually. Have you got a round figure? Are you on a sliding scale? How does that work?
Depends on how much cash flow you want out the end of it.
Oh,
we target
okay.
10%. We target 10% a month cash flow.
I'm sorry, I'm confused. In terms of the training aspect, the handheld aspect, what does it cost the consumer?
The program costs, Mella, what is it?
$329.
Thanks.
$329. So the cost to cover the costs of the coaches and our overheads and everything else, the program costs $329. What you
$329.
Yeah, for 3 months of 3 coaches.
Is that per month or in total?
No, that's full thing. Full
That's
program.
very reasonable, mate. Very reasonable.
It's a bloody bargain, mate. Now, then obviously you've got on top of that input costs of deploying capital into the tried, tested, trusted, proven platforms that we've spent years perfecting. So let's say you put $100 in month 1, there's an expectation that will turn itself into $110, a $10 increase. We target 10% a month. That's the premise of it, okay? Now, there's all sorts of things. The coaches will go through all sorts of things with you because it's all about mindset, skill, systems, and then you get the income. But if you don't get those 3 things right at the beginning, and you can try and just assume it's a magic money tree, then that's when you're going to go wrong. So that's what people are paying for, really, is that perspective.
And what does it involve in terms of how much like one-to-one work versus group calls? I mean, is it how's it?
4 hours. 4 hours.
I'm sorry, I've lost you.
Yeah, so there's I've got you. 1 introduction hour, and then 1 hour a month for 3 months.
Half an hour introduction and 3 hours.
Half an hour.
Sorry, I totally lost you. Don't know what happened.
Yeah, Mella, explain how it works.
It's half an hour intake to get to know you and you get to know us, and then 3 hours every month, a full hour to you, and in between you have us on chat in whatever platform you like us to chat with you.
Cool.
I put the link in the chat if you like to know.
Yeah,
And we have USA coaches doing it as well.
yeah.
Cool.
Which is important. It's important. The US element's important if you're based in the US, because the US has slightly different rules on empowering its population. In fact, it makes it very difficult for them. Whereas in the rest of the world, we can move a bit more quickly and a bit more effectively. Go figure. But that's the nature of it right now. So yeah, very powerful. The idea of that is to accelerate people to a point of realization and action. I was saying this to Alicio before. One of the best-selling business books of all time is The Cash Flow Quadrant by Robert Kiyosaki, the sister book of Rich Dad Poor Dad. The numbers on that are quite extraordinary. People will read that book or those books, and less than 5% of people will actually take action on what those books provide, which is crazy. What we're determined, what we do at DBM is we don't just talk about it. We don't just give you the vision of what it is to turn yourself into a business system, the way I've been talking today. We actually give you the steps to go and do it. Now, we are able to be more virile with that than Kiyosaki because of the blockchain, which, to be fair, he didn't have in 1992. So the whole thing is morphed very quickly. And it's why we talk about Internet of Jobs, being paid to carry out everyday activities. It's gamification of education is the next one coming. Alicio and myself are all over this with the very similar premise. Just go on to Thrive Hub after this call. Go and have a look at the leaderboard. And I bet you find it very difficult not to say, oh, I'm going to nudge myself up to the next spot. That's the gamification of the platforms. Imagine if that was monetized. That's what's coming. Very, very, very powerful. There is actually, Blossom. There is. I'm sure she's asking that in tongue in cheek, but there is actually.
No, I wasn't. I really like to shop, and I'd love to get paid to do it.
I've not endorsed it yet. Going back to Mark Abadi's point about it's a 6-month process of discovery, and I'm 4 months through that. We're very, very, very close to a project that is basically going to be the blockchain or the Amazon of blockchain, and you get paid to shop.
I'm your woman.
Yeah, and I don't mean that. Yeah, right. Yeah, we're going to get into the women's tribe. Yeah, I don't mean that half-baked you get a discount credit garbage. I mean, you own the infrastructure. If you understand leverage, as I've been explaining over the past few months, you could even get to the point where the equity increase of a prime apex asset, we always use Bitcoin, can pay for your whole year's worth of shopping. All right, and that's coming. That is very close to coming. In fact, my phone's been bonging at me because we're just about to launch the first node in that program. So it's funny I spotted that, Blossom, very intuitive of you as usual. That there are platforms coming where people will genuinely get paid to shop.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's brilliant.
I knew there'd be something in this space that I would love.
Yeah. Pay to play, pay to get educated, pay to bank, pay to be insured, pay to be your own policy, insurance policy, pay to shop, paid. That's what Internet of Jobs is. Any other thoughts?
Doesn't sound terrible.
Does it? It doesn't.
No, I'm in. All right. Well, if nobody has any more questions, we'll start to wrap it up there with Sean so we can sort of prep for our Crypto Tribe call. We're going to go live today, you guys. Why? Because we want to save time and then we don't have to upload it and it's easy. And because live's fun. And actually from an algorithm perspective, we get, we get more traction and we're all about more traction. So we're going to come back. We're going to have some spicy stuff we're going to talk about in Crypto Tribe. And we're going to, in the new year, be moving into some new things with this call. And so stay tuned, you guys. We're in the background, plotting away how we can, get more value and really serve the community. So lots of feedback right now, what your needs are, what your desires are, what your wants are. Speak now or forever hold your peace, because right now is where we're planning the new year. And that's going to be determined a lot by the community and what the requests and the desires are. And so if you want something, the beautiful thing about this academy and this situation is that we can actually ask, and chances are you will probably get what you want if you ask. If you don't ask, then, well, yeah, we know how that goes. So Sean Maloney, thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome.
I'm glad you met Mark Abadi. He's also coming in hot and new to crypto, but lots of questions, lots of questions. And he's in your neck of the wood. And so I'm excited for you to meet him. He's going to be a big part of what we're doing in Thrivevolution and in all of our academies and all of it. So you're going to see lots more of him. We're really wanting to bring a lot of our people into crypto. And so, seeing more of your coaches and really like engaging at a higher level is what we're talking about for the new year. Some podcasting, just the ability to just have, lots of fun, right? Getting paid to shop, for example, Blossom, right? And because why not? And so we've got lots of fun in the future, and we really want to create that leverage. We've got so many skill sets here. It's ridiculous, and we all have so much to offer. And so we tend to, because of how we're raised, we tend to kind of do things on our own, right? Like we tend to be islands by the nature of just the culture that we've grown up in. But now we're moving into what we lovingly and fondly call quantum collaboration. And with the blockchain, this level of collaboration at the radical level is completely impossible. And most of us, not only have we never seen it before, we haven't experienced it. So it's hard to understand how dynamic and how powerful this level of collaboration is. So the new year of 2022, we've coined quantum collaboration, or if you prefer, radical collaboration. So it's just like, how can we work smart instead of hard? And how can we really serve each other by combining our skill sets so that, I don't need to know, everything. Pressure's off. Willa doesn't need to know everything. Sean doesn't need, we all have something that we can put in, and then 1 and 1 makes 11. And that network of networks that we're creating is brilliant, because then everybody benefits through that at exponential levels. So it's super exciting. And so we're just going to take a little pause. I'll let you guys chit chat. We can stop the recording.